Melissa Peng here with the Entrepreneur Source. So happy to be here with Michelle Holliman, who is with Pigtails and Crewcuts. Welcome, Michelle. So glad to have you.
Hi, Melissa. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to our conversation today. So listen, you've been at Pigtails and Crewcuts for a while. Basically since it started franchising. So definitely want to dive into all of that. And you and I have been working together now for several years. I know Pigtails and Crewcuts has been a member with the Entrepreneur Source, and it's been fantastic. Love working with you and your team, which we'll get into because we want to know, the team that you've built and the culture at Pigtails and Crewcuts. But before we jump into all that, do you mind giving a little bit of background on how you got to Pigtails and Crewcuts and where this all started?
Okay. Sure. So, after college, I moved to Atlanta and started working for a company called Heavenly Ham. And it's a national franchise supply chain, specialty ham, specialty meats. The principal of that company, one of the principals, was Wade Brannon, who is now the owner of Pigtails and Crewcuts. So once HoneyBaked Ham acquired HoneyBaked acquired Heavenly Ham, Wade kind of semi-retired, and I continued working with HoneyBaked Ham, and then I kind of moved to other franchise companies along the way, and then Wade met the original founder of Pigtails and Crewcuts back in 2003, and she approached him and asked about, hey, I want to franchise this, and he acquired Pigtails and Crewcuts, and then he called me and he was like, hey, let's get the band back together. Let's start working together. So I have been with Pigtails and Crewcuts since day one. This February will be probably, I think, 18 years. So Wade and I have been working together for over 25 years, and it's been great. He's a great boss. He's a great leader. And so, I've been with Pigtails and Crewcuts since day one.
I find that in and of itself is so exciting and fun, because it is sometimes rare to find someone who's been with a brand for so long, and especially since its inception. Mm-hmm. So what was it about? I mean, you'd worked with Wade for several years prior to. What was it about Pigtails and Crewcuts that you were like, you know what, I'm really excited about this? And then what is it that has kept you going over the past 18 years? And also congratulations.
Well, I loved franchising. Yeah. Franchising is just, it's the great model. It's something that, and I've done franchising. I've worked for franchise companies that, HoneyBaked Ham, it's a large franchise company. And then, Heavenly Ham was a little smaller, and Pigtails and Crewcuts. And so it's that emerging brand that's so exciting. But it's also, our brand is very unique because it's a kids hair salon franchise. And so the industry isn't large, but it's fragmented, it's recession resilient. We've gone through a recession in 2007 and then a pandemic as well. So, and we're still surviving. We're still showing great numbers. We're really having a great time. But also it's about the kids. Pigtails and Crewcuts, it is a kids hair salon that you walk into, not something that wasn't around when I was younger. And when a kid walks in, they see the brightly colored walls, those theme car chairs, that we want to make a haircut fun and memorable. And it's not just for the kids, but it's for the parents too. We want to make sure that the experience is top notch. And so that is something that has always excited me, because one, I enjoy kids, and I tell people, to work, in this environment, whatever, you have to kind of like kids, not just your own kids, but you got to like kids. And also, it's just, people spend money on their kids, and everybody needs a haircut. So it's something that's just always welcomed in every community and every market. And so we're seeing great results, and I'm really excited, and I just love the people that I work with and just the brand as a whole.
On that note, I was looking at just some of the different franchisee stories and testimonials, and even Wade's story, and of how he came to acquire Pigtails and Crewcuts. And one little red thread that I did see several times throughout was a lot of these franchisees said the support was phenomenal, and the culture of the franchise leadership team really kind of drew me in. that's what kept me there. That's what keeps me going. So, kind of off of what you're saying there as well, like, how did you guys build that culture from the beginning? Because that isn't something that's like you do overnight, and it's not something you can really put a system in place for. So, yeah, how did that get built?
So absolutely. So our CEO, President Wade Brandon, he always tells everybody, we're not in the children's haircut industry. We're in the franchise support industry. We are a franchise support company, and our job is to support our franchisees. And by creating a great culture, by managing people, by being leaders, by caring, part of our core values is making sure that you create a great environment. You respect, you work with integrity and respect. And so that is something that we emphasize a lot when we evaluate prospective franchisees, when those prospective franchisees hire at the local level, because people want to work for good people. People want to work for leaders. People want to work for people that care about them. And by creating that culture, then you'll have a ripple effect, and people will want to work for you. And so I'm very excited, and I'm proud of the team that we've created here in Atlanta, but it also reflects based on, in the 23 states that we have locations. And that's, it's huge for us is the culture.
I love that, because I think too, it's something with brands at really all stages. It's something that we say a lot. Like, culture is kind of a big buzzword these days, and finding it, but to actually bring in franchisees who do like match the culture that you've built is not as easy as it sounds. So, were there any things that happened over the past years as you've built this from like the ground up, where you're like,
Right.
this is something we did that really like kind of helped, and these are some things we did that did not help, and now we know?
You always try to learn from your mistakes. I mean, we have grown organically over time. We have over 70 locations in 23 states. And some people were like, wow, that's not a lot of units, but we're also want to make sure that we find the right people, that we understand what their goals and objectives are. So there are certain times where we had to tell people, you just didn't fit our culture. You just didn't fit. And that's okay. I mean, and maybe it's better for them, maybe it's better for us, but there are certain things that we look for. And that's what's been so great about working with TES too, is just that collaboration with the coaches and having the understanding, and you guys doing the disc profile and recognizing ahead of time so that we know how the conversation's going to roll and everything. So there are certain things that we have along the way, we have recognized we could always improve on. Every company, if you're not self-reflecting as a company and finding ways to improve, then you need to do that, right? So there are certain things that we have always improved. I don't know if I answered your question, but okay.
No, it's just good to see. Like, I think an important piece is that saying no to people, because it can feel in the moment, of course, you want to grow the brand. You have someone who's saying, yes, I'm going to pay you the franchise fee. I'm ready to invest. Like, I love it. And it's hard to say no to that. But when you look long-term, you're like, no, it really is going to be, because also you look down the road and yes, you want to have these great stories from your franchisees. They're going to be validating with other potential franchisees.
Exactly
so
right.
it's just that community that you're building that is really important long term. So.
It is cliche because we're a family, and some people say, oh, that's cliche, but we truly are. And I think it stems from the very beginning, and there's that respect there. And that is why our validation is great. Whenever I speak to a client from TES or whatever, I always want them to talk to our franchise owners. I want to put them in touch, because the validation is there. The peer-to-peer support in our system is enormous. I mean, I love the fact that they talk constantly, and they are constantly bouncing ideas, commending each other for great achievements, lifting each other up when they're just having a bad day because they're a small business owner. So it's the norm, but that peer-to-peer support is by far the best I've ever seen in all the years of franchising.
That's a big statement. And that's something that, as you're talking, I'm thinking about people who, the clients that we're working with, oftentimes it's the first time they're going into business ownership. There can be a lot of fear. And there's also a lot of misconceptions where I think that a lot of these people, until they talk to you, until they talk to the franchisees, they don't understand that this isn't just a business model. And, it's specifically in the children's haircut industry. Yes, that's what it is on the surface. But underneath, it's the community, that peer-to-peer support, it's the support from the franchise leadership, and there's this whole culture and story behind the brand that I think people, when they look at franchising, never realize.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, we just did a survey, a system survey with our franchise owners. You always want to be in touch with how everybody feels and what give them a guideline of where we're going in the future. And we just had our national franchise conference. So we all got together, and it was our first one since the pandemic. So we were all very happy to be together, just like the one in Savannah with TES. And so it's always great to understand, how they feel, what's going on, and again, self-reflect. How can we improve to help you? Again, our job is franchise support. And if we're not supporting them to the level of success, then we are not successful.
100%. And I think it's clear that you guys, Pigtails and Crewcuts, and just, you and Wade and the whole team have had that since the beginning. And that's another reason why we love working with you guys, because we're connected in that way of wanting to bring in the right people and find that the person who's going to be right for you, and that your brand is going to be right for them. And that makes all the difference. And it does lead to success. Just sometimes not always on the same timeline, but it does at the end of the day.
Absolutely. I mean, I've found such great relationships with all of the TES coaches. I mean, just having that conference in Savannah and putting a face with the name, and, just being able to just have conversations face to face. It was so much fun. The speed networking was great. And then we've made some connections. Hannah and I have made connections after the fact, and I'm very pleased, and we've just had a great relationship so far.
I am very glad to hear that. And, it's exactly the same on our side as well, because that's who we're looking for too. Within the, within the franchising community, is you want to find those people who are connected on that level. And at the end of the day, it is, we always say the client is the focus. And so if we can help them, maybe they move forward with the franchise, and maybe they don't, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter.
No, and that's exactly why we chose TES. I mean, TES fit our core values, work with integrity and respect, build positive relationships. Our job is to make sure that, educate the clients, educate them to know what they're getting into, because if it's not a good fit, that's okay. But having that conversation, and I feel like the collaboration between TES and us has been positive because we're on the same page. We have the same goal. And by talking to each coach and their client and making sure, there are times where I just have a conversation with their client and they were like, I love your concept, but it's not right for me. And I'm like, I understand. It has to be the right investment. We have to be the right people that they want to get involved with, and vice versa. And if it's not, we just made a new friend in Missouri or something. It is not about, just grow. We want to grow the brand, but it's not always just about units. It has to be right, which again goes back to our culture and why we have such a positive environment. And so working with every TES coach, talking to them, collaborating with them, those 3 C's, that's huge, And so I respect and commend TES because that's really what's connecting us and having a better understanding and growing and working with more coaches along the way. So it's been positive for sure.
Thank you. And yes, I can agree wholeheartedly. And it is interesting too, when you look at, with what the coaches do. A lot of times they've been in their clients' shoes, so they also have that, and then they really truly do want to have the clients they have the client's best interest at heart. So it's, the more we can collaborate, the better. And that's really what's important. Not at the end of the day, did my
Yeah,
client prefer?
it's that trust
Right.
factor, I mean, I'm trusting you guys to bring clients to, even to me, just to talk about our brand and just having that awareness that we're out there. And those, the clients are trusting us to have the conversation of educating them about what's franchising is all about. A lot of people don't have experience in franchising and they need to know what they're getting into. Because I love the idea of someone wanting to build something. Yes, we give them the footprint, but building, it's the American dream, right? You want to build something for yourself and create that portfolio and that additional asset for your family. And we have some that have zero experience in franchising. And then we have multi-brand, multi-unit operators too that understand it. They just want to diversify a little bit and grow into something else. So we have all different types of ownership structures in our business, which is great. It's about, again, talking to them and understanding what their goal and objective
I love
is.
that you have, even within franchising in itself is so diverse on one level. You have so many different industries and brands and people who are going into it with so many different backgrounds. But I love that even within just this one brand, Pigtails and Crewcuts, you do have that so much diversity. And I'm sure, and you can speak a little bit more to this, of who your owners are and where they're coming from and what they're like, but also, and how you're finding them and finding that kind of right fit, as we call it.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm sure they come from so many different backgrounds as well. It's not
They do.
just someone who has that haircut experience or someone who has worked with kids in the past. There's, I'm sure, a red thread, but which, if you want to talk about that a little bit in terms of your
Yeah.
franchising community, how you find
So it's funny because we always thought, when I first started here, I was like, I don't even know anything about the hair industry other than it's a $70 billion industry with the children's segment of $7 billion. That's a lot. You're like, okay, people get haircuts regardless. It's there. It's always going to be present. And so surprisingly, none of our franchise owners are hairstylists. Crazy, right? It's not that we're discriminating them. It's just that we are finding people with business backgrounds and just ready to do something different, in whether they were in the corporate world, whether they were the stay-at-home mom that's ready to get back into the workforce. And over the years, we have seen a shift of less full-time operators, more semi-absentee, because this business kind of lends itself to being able to have a semi-absentee ownership structure. We have some that are the key holders. They want to be there day in and day out. That is fine. If that's what you want to do, that's great. But then there are some that are looking at the big picture, owning multiple units. And so the way we are looking, our target audience and who we're looking for, it's just people that can manage people, that can be leaders. Again, going back to the culture, creating that culture, working with, how to handle hourly employees, how to handle HR scenarios, how to handle parents that get upset because they don't like the haircut that child just received. It's just really educating them, training them. And, again, as I said, it used to be a very female oriented business. Now we're seeing, a lot of couples, a lot of males coming in wanting to do something different and diversifying their portfolio. Different multi-brand operators that recognize it's a low investment with a high potential return, and it's also giving back to the community. You were talking about providing a service for children that may or may not enjoy getting a haircut. As silly as it sounds, it's like it's a haircut. It could be seriously traumatic for a child to get a haircut. And so a lot of our training, a lot of our discussions with our franchisees and their discussion and training with their employees is how to handle children that are afraid or may have special needs. And we really take pride in accepting all kids, all, ethnicities, and identifying if someone has special needs, how can we make this experience great for them? And we have so many stories in our system. I mean, we had a story about our franchise owner in Tennessee. The mom would bring in her child who had special needs, would bring in her child and brought him in 4 times to not even get a haircut, but just to get familiarized with the environment, and wanted to make sure that they were okay. And on the 5th visit, just to see the environment, he was like, "I'm ready to get my haircut." And mom was crying, franchise owner was crying, stylists were crying. We were all like, this is such a big deal that we don't think about what this means to that family, to that child. It's just something as simple as getting a haircut. So it really is, we have a lot of feel good stories out there about that, because something that's just as simple as a haircut could mean just a huge, momentous occasion for that particular family.
I got some chills. I love
Yeah.
hearing that because, again, this goes back to like what I was saying before about when you think about franchising, you only think about certain things. And I've said it before too, where I think sometimes brands can focus so much on the income piece of it. Like, what is this franchise going to do for you? It's going to give you XYZ income, or you have this possibility, this potential. And that's really what we focus on. But what I love about what you just talked about is there's so much more to it than that to focus on as to what this franchise and this brand, this one in particular, but also in general, when you're thinking about franchising, what it can do for individuals, what it can do for community. And like at the same time that the franchise owner is creating, we talk about income, lifestyle, wealth, and equity, but they're creating wealth and equity for their family, but also they're doing all these other things within the community that's maybe not always talked about as much as it should be, because that should be
right. Well, and it provides that work-life balance as well. We all always talk about work-life balance, how important it is. And, it is. Exactly. I mean, I talk to people about ROIs, and I'm like, I understand everybody, if they're going to invest in something, they want to see an ROI. It's there, but it's something always bigger too. You don't necessarily have to be at Pigtails and Crewcuts, the salon, day to day. But it's really about the giving back. And that's another core value is, giving back to your community, whether it's something as simple as giving that great haircut and understanding that child's need. We have another franchise owner that grew up in foster care. She gives every foster kid in the foster care system a free haircut. She doesn't care. She's like, this is something that I am doing as giving back. It's not about monetary ROI. It is about emotionally feeling good and making sure that I care, and so a lot of those feel good stories are, in existence, but it's also a business too.
With the ROI, we will not argue with the fact that the ROI is very important. And I think too, when you look at, people who are coming to look at the business, looking to possibly become a franchisee and invest, yes, they're definitely brought in by, there's certain things that resonate with different people. And I think too, once I can see, okay, this is going to be a profitable business, or I have the potential to make it profitable, then I feel like it's those other things that kind of fill it out. So they say, you know what, it's Pigtails and Crewcuts. That's the right one for me. And because of the culture and the support and the giving back, it's these other things that kind of make it real for them. Otherwise they could really go into any business. Why is it that they're choosing yours?
Right. Well, it goes back to that, having those conversations. I can't convince someone that doesn't want to do a kid's hair salon because they don't like kids, but they really have their heart set on doing a restaurant. That's their personal choice, and that's fine. It's when they experience, I encourage all of them, go to a salon. If you don't have one nearby you, let me know. Come to Atlanta when you come and visit us or whatever. We'll take you to a salon, because when you walk in and you see it, you feel it, you understand what the model is. It's not just a hair salon that you're walking into. It's just the experience as a whole. We want to make sure that you understand and willing to be open-minded to it. And so, again, it's not something that has been around forever. I didn't have it growing up. And when you see it, you're like, okay, people enjoy spending time, experiences, and money on their children. That's something as a parent people do. They spend money on their education, they spend money on their experiences, and then on their, well-being. And so it really, really is about the experience and visiting that and then also understanding the support that they get. That's the great thing about franchising is if you don't have the franchise support behind you, then why can I open this up as a mom and pop? Why can't it be, Melissa's hair salon? Well, because you have to think of everything that's entailed, and we've done that for them, and we've made it easier for them, and understanding how to get to the next level so that they're thinking, oh, I could do multiple units. I could really make this an empire if I, follow the marketing guidelines and follow all of the things. I mean, it's simple, it sounds simple, but we find those personalities and we recognize immediately, hey, I think this would be a good fit and the market's a good fit. So that's part of our dialogue with clients and prospective owners.
Yeah, 100% looking at all the different pieces. And also,
right.
You've mentioned experience so many times where this whole kind of journey that someone goes on to invest in a franchise, it's, again, you could simplify and say, they're interested in the franchise, you go through the process and then you sign, but it does have to be an experience for that potential franchisee as well. And if you're not building that, then you're probably missing out on people because they're not fully understanding what the brand is about. So if you are kind of like pushing people through and not creating an experience for them, then they're not really going to ever connect with you.
Well, they got to feel like they're a part of something. They have to connect with you and your coaches. They have to trust them. Then they have to connect with the franchisor. And if they don't feel that connection, then it's not right for either party. And so part of that along the way is all about the education. You got to make sure that they understand what they're getting into, what an FDD is all about, making sure that they understand, what their investment is going towards, what the expectation is on both sides. And that's part of my conversation with them is this is what you can expect from me. And this is what we expect from you. And if we are good with that, then we can have a successful partnership. We will help you along the way. Your success is our success. And if you're not successful, whether it's monetary or whether it's just evaluation or whatever, we want to make sure that you understand what you're getting into fully. And so there is no timeline for that. If they're like 6 to 9 months or, hey, I'm thinking about it, but I'm not going to make a decision until next year. Great. I'm okay with that. Just because it's not within that 2-week, 4-week process, it's fine. Just don't rush into it. And you just continue talking because more than likely they'll do an additional unit or they'll know somebody just like everything else. There's always referrals. There's always having that experience and making sure. And if you can provide that excellent relationship and feeling and connection, it's a win-win for everybody.
Exactly. To your point, even if it doesn't move forward right away or on our timeline, it was not a waste of time. It was a good investment. It was a good investment of time and energy. So now going a little bit into a different arena, but I know you mentioned about, you guys went from owner operator to semi-absentee. You've seen things where I feel like you mentioned something else that's changed. But basically, my point is there's been changes evolving, as time goes on. What do you see, whether it's Pigtails and Crewcuts evolving or even just on a bigger scale, franchising evolving? Like, what do you see as the future of franchising? And I will throw this in there here if you want to mention it as well. But I also think women in franchising, it's a really great time as well. I've seen a lot of
Yeah.
change happen there. So if you do want to touch on that at all, but basically future franchising.
Yeah, it's always great time for women to be in franchising. I mean, for sure, right? There's a lot of opportunity. There's a lot of lending
Mhm.
opportunities. We see a lot of opportunities with veterans
Yeah.
too. We have a lot of veterans in our system, but it is evolving. And with Pigtails, we're always making sure we're technology wise and innovation.
Mhm.
Even though we are a kids hair salon, how can we? Cutting hair is
Right.
simple. You have your employees, they went to cosmetology school, they know how to cut hair. There's not a lot of change in kids haircuts. It's pretty much 3 ways to cut a child's hair, but it's about the experience as a whole that parent is experiencing and when they walk into our salon. So how can we make it easier for them? What can we do? So a lot of that technology and innovation will continue changing for us, making sure that the app is, we have an app that's the best app that it can be, how we can, the timeline of checkout process and what services that we can provide in the future. So that's always evolving with us and making sure that we are understanding, the way of the world and how, again, it goes back to, it's just a haircut. You're walking in, but can you make this
Hmm.
a commodity? How can you make sure that the customer experience is top notch? And so that's kind of what we're always evaluating, the marketing and just the innovation portion of it all.
Amazing. And I think too, that's something for any brand to take away is, hey,
Yeah.
you're doing an oil change or you're doing whatever it is, you're mowing someone's lawn.
How can you make that experience
Yes.
better? How can you, if it makes them, hey, I can make book an appointment now, and that's the thing is we have to be
Yeah.
open-minded. It's funny. I'll tell you a quick story, but back in the day when we first started this, we were a walk-in
Okay.
salon only. We did not want to take appointments. We were adamant about parents and children are never on time for anything. So why would we take appointments and back everything up if someone is a no-show or whatever? Well, over time, markets dictated appointments were necessary. And then the pandemic hit. And then we had to completely shift and our thought process, because now we had to take time for cleaning and making sure that the customers felt safe and just making sure everything was sanitized and everything. So appointments makes sense, and now 100% of our salons are appointment based. So for so many years we were like, no way, we don't want to do that. Why would we do that? You have to be open-minded to make sure, and you evolve to where what things are asking and what they're requiring and what's best for the company as a whole. And so that's something that was a huge shift since the pandemic.
Okay. And the fact that you were able to do that, I think, yeah, being open as well. And even now, as you're saying that, I'm like thinking to our company, I'm like, what are some things that we're like adamant about that
Yeah.
you can change?
Yeah.
And I think that's true. Just looking at, especially just in the past 2 years, how things have changed and people have had to evolve. And I know we've talked about it. Everyone's been talking about it for ages, but it's just a really great example of, you do have to be open, be quick, be able to switch things, but also that is the strength of a franchise as well. As a franchise business owner, you trust that your franchisor is going to make those changes and be able to do it quickly in a way that as an independent, you probably wouldn't be able to. But anyways, well, thank you so much, Michelle, for chatting with me a little bit.
Thank you so much for having me. It's so much fun. It was great talking to you. I love, I'm so proud of our relationship, and I look forward to much success with this partnership. It's been great, and we just want to say
110%.
thank you
Thank you
again.
so much, Michelle. Looking forward to the future. Here we go. All right.